Chapter 4, we're going to be talking about some of the trends that we're seeing that in America today that affects the makeup of our families and kind of how our demographics look as a country. Some of the environmental influences that are affecting that. And remember, when we talk about environmental influences, we're talking about natural environmental influences, things that are biological or things that are found in the earth. And we're also talking about the human constructed environment, things that we are creating as humans that are in our environment, and then also the behavioral environment, emotional and social relationships, and things like that. So, again, we want to focus on the mission of improving quality of life. And as we look at these different trends, we're going to be thinking about how this could affect our careers as FCS professionals. So, we're going to be looking at our aging population, changing family structures, increasing diversity, global economy, technology increasing, and also work-life issues. So we'll start off by talking about the aging of our population. So in America right now, the trend is that we are getting older on average as a society. There's a decrease in how many children we're having. So we've got those numbers of the younger people in our country are going down. There's not as many babies being born, so that's bringing up the average age, and then also increases in healthcare, and people are living longer, so that is increasing that as well. We've got a big generation called the baby boomers that has always been a huge section of our population. And they are living longer. So we're having fewer babies and more older people. So our average age is going up. Part of the reason for that is because of the increases in healthcare and technology advances in being able to keep people healthier for longer, which is a good thing. This is something that you can consider when you're thinking about jobs and how this could affect your career outlook. So there are going to be a whole lot more jobs available that are going to be dealing with the aging community. So maybe working for a nursing home, retirement center, um, just different aspects of that aging population. So it's definitely something to consider when you're looking at what types of fields that you might want to go into. Also have to look at things like healthcare costs. Medicare and Social Security is something that's kind of a big topic right now because there are so many more older people. Is our system going to be able to have enough money to support what they need? So definitely something to think about as you're thinking about your career goals and what you want to do with your degree in FCS. One other thing to think about is kind of what that might look like as far as independent living, older people wanting to be able to take care of themselves, be more on their own. It can create some major life transitions when health starts to decline and they aren't able to take care of themselves. We see this phenomenon of something called the sandwich generation, and these are people that are probably about middle age, that have their own children that they are trying to take care of and their own family and their own jobs, but then they've also got an elderly parent or someone that's elderly in their family, maybe even a grandparent that they're trying to take care of. So we see them sandwiched between trying to take care of the older generation and the younger generation, and that can create a lot of stress in a family system. One thing that has been recently improving on that in our country is FMLA. So that's the Family Medical Leave Act. That is, most employers have to follow this. There are some exceptions, but people are allowed up to 12 weeks a year to be able to take a leave of absence from their job to be able to take care of whatever family caregiving. So that could be taking care of a child, but that could also be taking care of an elderly parent. So we do need to remember that this is unpaid leave, so it's not like you just can leave and then keep getting your paycheck. But it does guarantee that you won't lose your job if you need to take off some time to take care of big life events. So that's definitely an improvement, but we do still have a long ways to go when it comes to our policies and things like that with taking care of family members. Okay, so the next group of people we're going to talk about is Generation Y. These are also known as millennials. This typically could be a lot of you listening to this if you are the normal college age type of student. Obviously, that's not going to be everybody in the class, but traditionally, this would be our college aged students. So there is a big increase in population here with people being born between 1982 and 2003. Millennials have made a huge impact in our culture socially. They have a lot of buying power, so that helps them kind of have some influence on people, companies, and different marketing strategies that are catering to this group of people, these millennials. Everybody wants to get their business or have them buy their product. So millennials have a lot of purchasing power. Also, because there are a lot of the millennials, this has kind of resulted in a teacher shortage. We've got overcrowded schools and not as many people of the older generation being in the teaching profession. So that's also something you can think about when you're looking at your job forecast. And lots more people are going to colleges and universities. So what that kind of has done, is starting to do, which might be forecasted over the next few years, is that it used to be, having a high school diploma was the norm. And then, you had to at least get a high school diploma to be able to get some types of decent jobs. But then, if you had a college degree, that would really help set you above and be able to really do well in your career. But now it has become, pretty much expected that a good majority of people are going to college, which is great because people are getting more education. That also kind of creates more competition in the workforce. So you've got these older workers that are all staying in the workforce longer. Retirement age is being delayed. So you've got more older workers in the workforce. Then you've got this whole group of younger workers that are more educated. And so we're kind of being flooded in the workforce with qualified people. The older workers have more experience. The younger workers have a lot of education. So you've got to think about that for your job outlook of how are you going to set yourself apart? How are you going to make yourself stand out when you're looking for jobs, and really making sure to focus on making yourself marketable, getting the education, getting the experience, maybe thinking outside the box on what types of career you want to go into, and really looking at those forecasted jobs that are going to be available to you guys when you're making those decisions to help you be successful in the workplace. So another trend in our country that's affecting families is the growth in diversity. So we used to kind of look at America as a melting pot where immigrants would come in and everyone would sort of assimilate to whatever American culture was. So people would just all kind of melt into, well, now I'm an American. But that's really not the case anymore. And a lot more diversity is being accepted, and people aren't having to choose between their born, country, identity, ethnicity versus American. They can be able to mix those things and stay true to their ethnicity that they were born with, their country that they come from, but also embracing America and being part of our society as well. So we're seeing so much more of this diversity being accepted, being celebrated. Interesting fact is that by 2020, which is not that far away, there will not be a racial majority group in America. So we kind of have this idea of like whites being a majority, and then others, we would call them minorities, Hispanics or Asians or African Americans or whatever the ethnic group might be. But we really need to start moving away from that terminology of I'm a minority or whatever you might say, because it's really not going to be the case any longer. We've got the reasons for that being interracial marriages, and so people don't really even have one set race that they can identify with. Maybe they're, half this race, half that race, and then they can identify with both. So we've also got a lot of immigration happening. So people from other countries are coming in and making our country a lot more diverse. And then the fertility rates are different too. So some ethnic groups have a lot more kids, which then their populations are going up in the United States. So we're really just seeing a whole lot more diversity when it comes to different ethnic groups, and we really need to move away from that idea of a majority versus minorities. That we're all going to be pretty equal very soon. The other thing to think about when we're looking at our family science and consumer science professions is that we are really into the global economy these days. So in the past, probably would have been very common just to do business within, your own community and kind of just stay local. But there are so many more companies now that are doing business all over the world. With the increase of technology, being able to just, Skype or FaceTime or emails or, the internet makes it everything is just right at our fingertips. So we could be having a meeting with someone in Japan just sitting right there in our office on a laptop. So it's pretty amazing how globalized our economy has become. Because of that, as professionals, we need to be aware of what those cultural differences might be when we're working with different kinds of countries and people with different cultures. So there are a lot of things to consider when you think about someone's culture. So we actually have a class, FAM 332, in our department that really focuses on this, and it's professional development as far as cultural ideas and how to be respectful and be understanding of different cultures and how that relates to the business world. So some cultures have very different um, body language styles. Maybe some countries are very touchy-feely, while others are more, they need more personal space. That might be something that you hadn't even thought of, but if your business partner, client, coworker, whoever is from a different country, that's something that could be seen as offensive. If you go give someone a hug, they might not appreciate that at all. So it's definitely something that we need to be aware of and always thinking about and showing respect to the different cultures. Also, things like the sense of time and the importance and priorities of how we manage our time. Some countries are very strict about being punctual. Others are a lot more laid back, and being 20 minutes late to a meeting is no big deal. So you might be upset that someone's late and, taking up your time, but in their country, that's the norm is to be 20 minutes late. So anyway, there's lots of different implications for the global economy. So if you're going into a field that is dealing with lots of different cultures in your workplace, definitely something to be aware of. Something else that is affecting families a lot and communities is the technology changes. We did talk about this in a previous lecture, just how technology is completely taking over our lives in some ways. Every aspect of our lives can be immersed in technology 24/7, which is great, like we just talked about on the last slide, in helping us have that global economy and making things more efficient. And the possibilities are endless when it comes to how we can use that technology to help us. But it can also create some stress as far as being available 24/7. That's something that I deal with my job because I work online, and so I don't really have set office hours, and so I could be checking my email at any time of the day, 24/7. So that kind of leads us into our next topic, which is work-life balance and family changes. So when we talk about work-life balance, that technology definitely interferes with that sometimes. If it's a time when I'm supposed to be hanging out with my kids, maybe I'm at some kind of event where I'm supposed to be watching them, and then I'm tempted to look at my phone and see if I have any emails. That technology really is affecting work-life balance today. So that brings me to our video lecture participation question. Um, as college students, maybe you have jobs, maybe you have families, maybe you're trying to juggle your schoolwork with a lot of other responsibilities that you have. So tell me, what is one healthy way that you can manage your stress? Because everybody has stress, and I want you to think about what are some healthy ways that you can manage that stress. So again, like I said last time, you can type as much or as little as you'd like into that drop box. Just let me know what's one healthy way that you can manage stress when you're dealing with your work-life balance or your school life balance or whatever that looks like for you. How do you handle stress? A few other things that I want to talk about as far as family changes is that this idea of a nuclear family with a mom and dad living together with their biological children used to be the norm, it used to be the majority, and it's really not anymore. We're really getting away from that being the stereotypical, that's what everybody does. Different lifestyles are a lot more accepted in our culture today. We've got same-sex marriages, we've got people adopting children, we've got blended families with stepchildren and remarried spouses. We've got a lot of grandparents taking care of their grandchildren. One reason for that is drug addiction, which y'all might have heard of, the opioid crisis kind of in the news lately. And that really is something that is affecting families and the way that our families are made up. We have a lot more of the grandparents having to take care of the grandchildren because the biological parent is either, addicted, can't take care of the children. Maybe they're in rehab, maybe they're in jail. Who knows? But that is one of those factors that is changing the demographics of what our families look like, as well as the aging of the population, like we talked about at the beginning. Grandparents are living longer and they're healthier, so they're more able to help. Also, being more accepting of single parenting. There used to be a huge stigma about a woman being pregnant or raising a child on her own, and that really has decreased nowadays, and it is much more common and more accepted for a single woman to just be raising her child by herself, and that's a normal and accepted type of family. One other thing that we want to look at is the marriage age. It has been increasing, so people are waiting a whole lot longer to get married than they used to. So if you ask your grandparents how old they were when they got married, it probably sounds very young to you. And our average age of getting married is a lot older now. We're waiting until mid to late 20s versus our grandparents' generation. We were probably getting married when they were in their earlier 20s, maybe even late teens. So those are a few demographic environmental changes that we want to be aware of as we're looking at our family and consumer science careers. How does that affect how you're going to look for a job or what type of specialization you want to go into? You've got to look at job availability and what is going to be the need when it's time for you to enter the workforce, and how can you specialize yourself to ensure that you can be successful and get a good job that will be lots of job opportunities for you when it comes time for that career.